So I think I'm audible. So we can start today's session. So before starting today's session, I would like to tell about myself only and the relevance of the personality test. So my name is Dr. Rajesh Mohan, and I have done MBBS from Government Medical College and Hospital, Chandigarh, Sector 32. Afterwards, I started my UPSC journey. This was my 5th attempt. And in the 5th attempt, I got rank 102, All India rank 102. I'm getting Indian Police Service. Recently, the mains result of Civil Services Examination 2021 was declared, and afterwards, DAF-2, Detailed Application Form, Part 2 was released, that is to be filled by those candidates who are going to appear in personality test. Now, I would like to tell you the difference between my performance in 2019 and my performance in 2020. I got very low score, in 2019 and 2020. I got 129 marks in personality test in 2019, and in 2020, I got 184 marks. So it was a big jump, and it was possible only because I believed that the personality test, there is a proper strategy for preparation of personality test. And that strategy starts with filling your detailed application form very carefully, very diligently, and in a very scientific manner, so that you are able to engage the chairperson and the board members and encourage them to ask questions in your comfortable area. So this is the strategy. In this lecture, I would like to share with you what kind of DAF filling you can do, what are the various mechanisms you can use in order to enable you get more marks in personality test. So the session would primarily focus on DAF. Now, again, I would like to say the significance of personality test. First is, it is 275 marks, way more than the marks in mains, any paper of the mains examination. More significant is the number of marks that you get here. In case of GS mains, you will be getting say 100 marks or 110 marks in one paper. But in this, you can get up to 200 plus marks. And you can also get 120 marks in this range. So there is a difference of 80 marks. So which can decide your chances of selection in the final list for UPSC. So how we should go about the filling of the DAF. So if we go about the lecture outline, we would be dividing it into 4 parts. First would be, we would be discussing what service preference you can give. Second is the cadre preference for all India services, that is IAS and IPS. And then the hobbies page, how can you write it in a nice way so that you can encourage the board members to ask questions from your comfortable areas. The first 2 aspects, the service preference and cadre preference, they would be of very great importance when you get selected. Because before the selection, you feel, most of those candidates feel that it is a normal thing and we can make preferences as per our own perceptions and own mindset. But when you get selected there, it matters a lot which service you are getting. For example, you are getting a good service in the initial part, for example, IAS, IPS, IFS, then you would be the relevance of cadre will be way more for you. However, if you get some other central service, you would be very much, because what happens is we don't know what kind of postings are there, what kind of provisions of deputation are there in various services. So one mistake up and down can, if the situation goes like that, you have to continue with that particular service, or you have to prepare and give another attempt. Sometimes there are services where EOL provisions are not there. So it becomes very important after the result. With regard to the cadre part, it is very important for all India services. In fact, it is considered a second kind of result after the UPSC final result, because if you get a cadre which is far from your home state, you would have issues with regard to the family, how family would adapt to the changes, because there would be a language, so it is a barrier for you. Second aspect is that your family would go with you, so the age of your parents is generally on a higher scale, so they won't be very forthcoming with learning new language or interacting with the new kind of culture, so that would have an impact on you. So in this video, in this lecture, we will be discussing how we can fill this DAF in the best possible way, which with more as objective as we can go for. So let's start with it. First part is service preference. Before starting, I would tell that each and every service has its own pros and cons, and it would be your individual personality, what kind of service, what are kind of expectation from this examination you are having, what kind of future career you want to pursue. On the basis of these things, you have to select a particular service. While selecting, you have to know that what is the general setting, that what kind of preferences other candidates put, what kind of service would suit to your personality. Second aspect is that EOL. What happens is that most of the people, if they do not get services like of their choice, say IAS, IPS or IFS, they invariably go for writing it again. Until and unless you are having your last attempt, you cannot give the next time. So you should know what kind of leave provisions are there. Then what is the future of the service, because you are going to start your career now, and lot number of changes will happen in next 10 to 15 years. So you should know if you are stuck, you are with that service, and what would happen to your career in your future. So according to that also you would be selecting a service. Then location, the posting, where the postings would be. So this would decide the future of your children, because after a certain time these things would be taken into consideration, whether your children would be getting proper education or not. So that would depend to a great extent on location. For example, if you are your posting is close to cities, so the education would be nicely taken care of. However, if your posting is in very far-flung areas, then there would be an issue in this regard. And finally, there is something called deputation. What happens is that the central and all India services, they not only do their own work, but they are posted in various ministries on deputation. So that is a time when generally happens after you have completed certain years of your career. And if a service is having good deputation, then it would be more fulfilling for you, more challenging for you. You can get an opportunity to learn diverse areas. You can get an opportunity to interact with more number of people if you get a deputation in a very good place. So this is the service preference that is given in the UPSC DAF, and you have to mark your preferences, order of preferences 1, 2, 3, 4 here. So this is the general point. Now we would be discussing what we have to go about. Now there is a general consensus with regard to the first 6 services among the candidates. That first 6 would be what? First invariably is IAS, Indian Administrative Services. Sometimes what happens is people go for Indian Foreign Service above Indian Administrative Services. That is generally there in case of states like Kerala, Tamil Nadu, these kind of states, where the craze for going outside is there. People feel that they would be able to contribute more to the foreign policy. Those who have a background in international relations, they want to use that particular skill set. Second part second part is IPS and IFS. Some people will prefer Indian Police Service over Indian Foreign Service, some Indian Foreign Service over Indian Police Service. Generally, for example, last year in my batch, it was in by 103 rank, it was the last allocation of the Indian Foreign Service. So if you put Indian Foreign Service above Indian Police Service, you will have a chance of getting Indian Foreign Service. But if you put Indian Police Service above Indian Foreign Service, because the number of seats in the IPS are more, so you won't be getting IFS in any case, because first IPS would end and then IFS would end. So these things you have to consider. After that, we have IRS, Indian Revenue Services. There are two parts, income tax, IT, and C&C, customs. And after that, Indian Audit and Accounts. So let's start with each and every service individually so that we get an idea. So first choice invariably is Indian Administrative Services. Everyone who started this UPSC preparation starts with an idea of becoming an IAS. In fact, most of the institutions are having the name by a name of IAS rather than civil services. So training, what is where it is done, everyone knows that the foundational course is a common foundational course which happens in Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration located in Mussoorie, Uttarakhand. After that, the phase 1 of the training of IAS happens in Mussoorie itself, and other services they go to their respective academies. After phase 1 there is a district training, then a phase 2, and then finally you are posted in the field. Now what kind of these technicalities are there? If you write if you get IAS, you cannot rewrite the exam. If you want to rewrite this exam, some very minor people, they are not satisfied with the cadre, you have to resign from the service, then only you can write the exam. This is there for Indian Administrative Services and Indian Foreign Services. Now, what are the advantages of this service? It is best in the starting and end part, in the sense that initially you will get a posting of SDM, then CU, after some time, say 7, depending on the state, you will become a DM. So during this phase, you would have lot of discretionary powers, you would have responsibilities of a particular area, and you can work in an individualistic way and take decisions based on your conscience, and you can bring about the change there. After some time, say after 10 years more, you around 30 years of your service, you will get an opportunity to work in a secretariat. So in secretariat, you would be posted as secretary or say deputy secretary. So on this level, you would be posted. At that particular time, you would have so much variety that, for example, if you are a secretary in union government, whole of the countries, that whole department, you would be responsible for that. So that gives large amount of diversity to you. In fact, if after retirement also you are having very good prospects, like for example, many IAS officers are become LG of say Delhi, J&K. So post-retirement prospects are there. So in all these phases of your life, initial part, the later part, and after the career also, you are having diverse areas to work in, diverse opportunities you will be getting, and that is the reason that Indian Administrative Services is put on the top on the service preference. Now, next is the Indian Police Service. So in Indian Police Service, the foundational course is in the Labasna, Mussoorie. After that, you have to go to Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel National Police Academy, that is located in Hyderabad. The duration of training is little longer. The phase 1 is about 10 months, then district attachment would be there, and then phase 2, and then you would be posted in various districts. Now, the point with the IPS and writing the exam is there. If you are allocated IPS service and you want to write again, and at that point you cannot mention IPS as one of your choices because you are already there in the IPS, you cannot go for a cadre change. If you want to change your cadre, you have to resign and then write it again. Finally, the EOL provisions are very liberal. In fact, within 3 days after cadre allocation, you can go for EOL. When you reach in the phase 1 of your academy, you have to reach to the academy in Hyderabad. After 2-3 days, you complete your formalities and you can get the EOL and you can prepare and give the exam again. So that is with regard to Indian Police Service. Now, Indian Foreign Service, so after foundational course in New Delhi, there is a Sushma Swaraj Institute of Foreign Services. There you will get an opportunity to train yourself. Then there is a lot of international exposure. You will be there would be 50-50 division of your location posting. 50% of the time you would be in Delhi and 50% you would be in various countries. So you would get a lot of international exposure, and slowly India's global stature is increasing. So you would be having more opportunities to decide and interact with the people of outside countries, and would have a say in international affairs. You can even get a posting in United Nations. So there is a diverse range of areas you can work in, locations you can work in. Now with regard to what happens generally, the issue for Indian Foreign Service is with regard to the marriage aspect generally, because what happens, you have to go to far away places. And now what happens is, if you have a spouse who is working in private sector, so in that particular case, Government of India would there is a stated policy that unstated policy that wherever you will be going, based on the skills set of your spouse, Government of India would be interacting with the government of that country and would try to get your spouse a job there so that you can stay there. So that kind of provision is there. But if you are married to a government sector employee, then it becomes a little challenging for you to manage. For example, sometimes what happens, if you are married to a person who has to stay in India, it becomes difficult for you to interact with the person, because only when you are in Delhi, then you can interact, but 50% of the time of your career you would be posted outside the country. That is a thing you should take into consideration while filling Indian Foreign Service. At the same time, I feel what happens is that for IPS there are certain medical criteria that your vision should be this, you should not be color blind, and all these factors are there. And for that there is a proper medical examination that happens. What happens is that some people they feel that I won't be qualified for this, so they do not fill IPS as their choice. Later on, most of those people, they repent their decisions, because at times what you think are the necessary conditions that are required to be met to become an IPS officer are different from what the UPSC thinks. So let the medical team decide whether you are eligible or not, and don't drop that service only because you perceive that you won't be medically fit for that particular service. So that you should take into consideration. After this, now there are two lines of thought. I have told that IS, IFS, some people fill IFS above IAS. The reason is that they have either a background in political science, they want to work in international relations, or the second reason can be that they come from an area where IFS is more an aspirational job compared to an IAS, because the society matters a lot, because as per the perception of the society, you think that this post is better or this post is not that good. Second is IPS and IFS. If you fill IFS above IPS, then you have a chance of getting IFS. But if you fill IPS above IFS, this means that you won't be getting Indian Foreign Service, because IPS number of vacancies are more and IFS it is less. Now, after these three services, fourth and fifth services are Indian Revenue Service. One is IT and one is Customs. Now, if we go by the training, so the custom training happens at Faridabad and IT training at Nagpur. For common foundational training course is at the Mussoorie itself. Now, generally, historically, if we go say 1 or 2 years back, most of the people fill IT above customs, and there are multiple reasons for that. First reason is that you are going to interact more with the public, and you would have a power to assess their revenue, income tax, and so you have a responsibility, and if you have more responsibility, more power, so people feel that IT is better. Second aspect is that IT is a powerful cadre, so you get very decent deputations if you are in IRS IT. So that way your career is more enriched. Second, now the part these days what is happening is, like, from the moment the faceless assessment has been introduced in the government system, generally customs is being preferred these days from last 1 or 2 years by some candidates. Now what are the advantages of custom is that first is that you get a uniform. Customs is a uniform service, and then you would be posted in various areas where custom related activities would be there. So you would be posted in ports and all this. So it is a field kind of job rather than office kind of IT job. If you want to see comfort level, IT is better. Third aspect is that in this customs, because the historically the preference has been more given to IT people than the customs, so you get little less deputations compared to IT. So according to me, you should put IT first, but because even though it is faceless, you cannot remove the human angle into it. Plus, as the time goes on, each and every service is going to become more digitally integrated, more faceless. The human interaction would be reduced, and the role of computers would increase invariably. So in customs also, there would be after some time some changes that would reduce the human to human interaction with an aim to reducing the corruption. So my personal opinion is that you go for IT above customs. Those and people can have a divergent opinion that they can go for say custom over IT, considering the uniform nature, and you will get, it is a field kind of job. You would be going to the ports and all these areas. So this you have to take the decision as per your own requirements and what your personality is. After this, we have Indian Audit and Account Services. This is a very good service. Some people even put IAS above IRS. So the reason being is, first of all, its training happens in Shimla. After that, it is very liberal EOL provisions. You will easily get EOL for preparing for the exam again. There is a huge international exposure, at times equivalent to Indian Foreign Service, because CAG of India is a very respected institute. It conducts audit of not only Indian institutions but also foreign institutions, for example UN and other international institutions that are emerging across the world. It conducts audit there also. Moreover, even though it is generally said that accounts related activities would reduce in the future because there would be more computerization, but audit will have its own significance now, after some time, and later on also, because you have to check what are the mistakes in the finances of a institution. So that way your respect is also more. So that is one of the reason that the future is very bright. And finally, the deputation, one of the best deputations you are going to get in Indian Audit and Account Services. So you have to consider that if you feel the kind of respect you will be getting, the kind of international exposure that is being offered by it, because in IRS this international exposure is little limited. So in this service it is more. So generally it is put on the 6th preference. You can put it above IRS also. So that is the first services. So general consensus about first 6 services is clear, that IS, IPS or IFS, and then IRS IT, then customs, and then Indian Audit and Accounts. After the later on services, there is a divide between North and South. Generally in North India, people, 60 to 70% people these days are going to put DANIPS and DANICS above all other central services. Why they put is because 70% of the posting is in Delhi and you are close to your family. Plus they are also having responsibilities, like very great number of responsibilities in the field work is there. Third part is that you are able to interact with the people in Delhi, which are generally having lot number of authority and power. So you are able to make connections with them. Because all these considerations, people most generally 70 to 80% of people are putting DANIPS and DANICS above all those central services. However, there are disadvantages with these services also, cons with these services also. First is that it is a group B service. So if you it has a psychological impact on you, that a person who is your batchmate would be going to very senior posts and you won't be able to reach to those posts. So that kind of issue is there. plus the promotions are little slower as compared to the time bound promotions that are associated with central and all India services. So that kind of issue is always there with the DANIX and DANEPS. Now mostly in South India, because they prefer to not go to Delhi because of cultural reasons and the climatic reasons, so they go with the flow. So what is the sequence that is generally? So generally the sequence is that after the 6 services, people go for Indian railway services. Now these days IRMS has been created, so all these services would be this traffic and all these things would be merged, and in fact from next year onwards more number of vacancies are coming, as all of you know that in 2022 number of posts are very more than 1000. One of the reason is because close to 200 posts from IRMS are going to be filled through civil services examination. Railways, there are advantages with this service. First of all, that you would be getting a lot number of autonomy to take decisions. When you are posted there, your kind of work profile would be administration related. You would get to decide what happens in this particular railway station. Second is that railways are still significant. They are innovating it themselves. There is going the core functions are going to remain with the railway board only. There would be delegation of functions, but that way it would increase your exposure also. You get good number of deputations also, plus your accommodation and all these things are very well cared of, and you will get very decent accommodation. Then at the same time you would have a staff supporting you, helping you in conducting various activities. So all these things make railway services a very good choice. And don't think that in future railways become obsolete. Railways is going to be reinventing itself. There is a future of bullet trains also. New kind of railways would keep on coming. So it's not that the railways is not having any future, that some people says. After that we have Indian Defence Estate Services on the 8th number. So Indian Defence Estate Services. So first of all, before doing individual services, I will broadly tell. After that, account services are there. Civil accounts and defence accounts. Civil is account servicing. Now the problem issue that people are saying with the account services is that in future accounts are going to be more computerized, less manual. So because of that, the relevance of these services would reduce, and in fact there are softwares being developed which would enable accounts management without the involvement of the people itself, through the use of artificial intelligence and all these kind of system. So the future of these account services, civil account services and defence account services, is a little dim compared to other services. So historically these services, civil accounts, defence accounts, and then postal. Now the postal is that postal service, there are various advantages that Indian Post, you would be posted, you will get great number of significant number of team members, like you would have a staff below you, because there is lot amount of manpower. So your work life balance would be very good in case of postal services. But some people are saying that just like accounts, because the future of mail is going to change, it will become email also. So the paper work would be little less. Because of that, the future prospect of postal services is little less. However, there is a different opinion also, that because Indian Payments Bank is being open, plus these postal services are having a reach across length and breadth of the country. So the government is going to use it as an asset, and it's going to reinvent this service. So in that case, the naysayers saying that the future of postal service is not that great, they may be wrong in that case. So a postal service, generally this is there. After that, so now there is a variation here. You can see that these, if you feel that these services will go down in the future, you can put Indian Corporate Law Service here, ICLS. Now this ICLS is a new service and it is having great future prospects. It is corporate law. Now with passage of time, what is happening is that the relevance of corporate law is increasing, and Indian economy is integrating with the world economy, many arbitration related institutions are being opened up in the country. So you would have great amount of international exposure also. At the same time, wide areas to work in, your significance will improve in future. Those people who are having legal background should certainly put ICLS above these services. In fact, they can put even above railway management services also, because if they can use the skill sets they have acquired during their law years. So this is corporate law services. After that, Indian trade service is there. After that, IP-TAF service is there. So what is this IP-TAF? So I will tell you about these services: IP-TAF, then IIS, then this is the Railway Protection Force in Indian Railways also. It is put little behind, then DANIX, DANEPS, PONDIX and PONDIPS, and Armed Forces Headquarters. This service is a Group B service. So a Group B section officer. So people put it in the last. Plus you can put Indian Ordnance Factory Services here also before the Group B, because it is a Group A service. Now we will be individually taking these services. The first is the important. I was telling that people put Indian Defence Service, state services little above. So what is the reason is that, first is that you will get an opportunity to work like an IAS officer. You will be conducting administrative functions. Your responsibility would be administrative functions. You would be posted in as a CEO of a cantonment area in the defense areas. So there are, as you know, that Indian Army, military are having various cantonment areas where the defense personnel reside. So there you would be doing this administrative work related to that particular area. Now, what are the issues with this service is that, first is there is a stagnation. In the initial years, you would be posted as CEO and later on also CEO. Initially of small areas, later on of bigger areas. So that issue is there. Second is they have psychological issue of autonomy related, because even though you have a great say in this working, but the final decision would be by defense personnel. So you are going to feel little let out, and plus the life cycle of you would be little different from the life cycle of the way you live with of the defense personnel. So because of these things, it is put on the 7th service. It is a good service, Indian Defence State Service. You would be getting an opportunity to work in administrative areas. After that, this account service is there. In civil accounts, you will be posted all across the countries to manage the accounts. In defense, only defense related. So people put civil accounts above defense accounts. Then postal services, we talked about the future of postal services. Corporate law service, it is having a great future. Only issue at present is that it is having a small number of people. So it's very difficult to get EOL in this particular service. Plus I think you won't be having, because it's a new service, this accommodation related issues are there. However, 5 years, 6 years down the line, you would be, these kind of issues would be resolved, and this is having a very good future. Now IP-TAF, there is a competition between postal service and IP-TAF. In IP-TAF, you will be attached to Department of Telecommunications, and as we know that telecommunication is going to have more significance in the future. So some people say that IP-TAF should be put for postal services. Training happens in Delhi. The biggest issue is that it would be very difficult for you to get EOL here. They don't give EOL. So you would either have to prepare and do the job simultaneously. You won't get a leave to prepare dedicatedly for this. After that, this is a service. Now it is also just like corporate law services, those people who are having creative mindset, they can put Indian Information Service little above other services, contrary to what the general pattern I just show. So what is the reason? Because first of all, very easy to get EOL here, so you can prepare again. Second is you would be posted in Prasar Bharati and these kind of institutions. There you can show your creativity, you can and you would be getting a number of platforms to work on. Plus deputations are rare, but whenever you get deputations, you will get deputations, one of the powerful deputations, the deputations with great amount of authority. So taking this into consideration, you can certainly think of putting little bow, especially those people who have done say some communication related graduation, say journalism related things, they can put Indian Information Services. Now this Railway Protection Force, so this is a uniformed service, just like IPS, just like custom service. Training would be there, but the issue here is that railways and police. So even though if any crime happens in the railway station, it is the you who are going to respond to it initially, but finally it would be taken up by the general police of that particular area, the Indian Police Service or the lower service, the state services of the particular state police services. So that way there is an autonomy related, that you are not going to take the direct decisions there. Second aspect is that you would have to work under the railway services, Indian Railway Management Services. So that way your own autonomy taking the decisions, that would be little less, and there would be a psychological issue of someone else commanding you. So that kind of issue is there. Then Armed Forces Headquarters, we discussed about it. It is Group B service, and you would be posted as a section officer. So desk job is there in Armed Forces. So people put it in the last most of the time. So this was the service related part. I think that is done. People can ask questions, I think, related to service, or most of the people are saying hello. So hello everyone. Now either we can go for a questions and answer session in the last part. So let's go for the question and answers in the last part, Q&A session. Now second part is cadre preferences for all India services, IAS and IPS. Now this is the most important section, because as I have said earlier also, the cadre, how the cadres are allocated is seen generally in foundation course as a second result coming, and some people are very happy with that their cadre, and there is so much confusion with regard to this cadre system that even people with very good ranks are not able to get home cadre. For example, rank 2, so she was not able to get the home cadre. She got so she is from Madhya Pradesh, got UP. So that way Satyam Gandhi also rank 11, I guess. He got Maharashtra from Bihar cadre. Plus there are other examples also. For example, there is a candidate 78 rank, 77 rank, Shubhankar Bala. So he was in the first iteration was not getting IAS. He was getting IPS in second, third iteration, got IAS. That too in home cadre, West Bengal, with this such a rank which is very much behind it. So you, while filling this cadre preference, you have to play it very smart, and then you can do this. So first part is that home cadre. Now what are the rules with regard to the home cadre? So home cadre, it will depend on the result of people of so home cadre means that you are an insider of that particular state and you get the same seat as an insider of that particular state. You get your home cadre. Now it will depend on what the results of your fellow home insiders are there. If the results are very good, you would have to have a very great rank in order to get that cadre. If results of your states are little less, then even in later ranks also you can get the home cadre there. So now it is a all or none kind of principle. If you get home cadre, you can get say home cadre in 78 rank also, depending on the number of vacancies that are there. If you don't get home cadre while you are allotted the cadre, you can never get that home cadre, because afterwards some people try to get the home cadre. What happens is that they get married to a person who is having so there is a provision in All India services that after marriage you can change the cadre of your to the cadre of your spouse, so that you can stay at this in the same state. But there is a asterisk marks there also, that you won't be transferred to a cadre which is your home cadre. So that way you can never go to your home cadre. So you have to consider that into system. Plus we are having something called zonal system. So I will show this how this operates. So this kind of zonal system is there. So there are 5 zones, zone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you have to give preference for zones also, and then within zones you have to give preference to the states also. So we can this is given there only from this thing. If you are now what state to select home cadre, there you can select any state as your home cadre. Generally people from that particular background where they have been born, they select that home cadre. But there are people also who would be selecting home cadre, say in the place they have studied for say 3-4 years. There are vague provisions regarding this also. In fact, I have seen people who are born in Tamil Nadu and they are putting Delhi as their home cadre. So because there are, I will tell this trick about Delhi, how we can use Delhi. Those who want to use this trick, they can use it in order to get a cadre of their choice, because generally what happens is that the insider vacancies are little less than the outsider vacancies. There is a 1/3, 2/3 rule, the roster system in the DOPT also, Ministry of Home also, that in one particular state, 1/3 of the officers would be insiders and 2/3 would be outsiders. So we will discuss about it. So first you have to put the zone preference, and within that your state preference. So while cadre allocation would be happening, they would be going with your order of preference. For example, first is suppose this zone 1 is your this second, third, fourth, this kind of arrangement you are having, and in this you are having this kind of arrangement, say. Now if you get a home cadre, for example, in my case I am putting Haryana as home cadre, then you would have to put Haryana on the first place, otherwise you will never get Haryana or your home cadre. So you have to have first preference that state only. If you some people do Delhi, then they cannot put, they will never get Agmut, because Agmut would be out of there. If they are having Delhi as their home cadre, then they have to put Agmut as their first preference, then only they will get Agmut. If they put some other state before that, they won't be getting that cadre. So now, for example, in this second part is like this. So then something like this you have filled. So how this cadre location will be there? First preference, first state would be your, they will be seeing on the basis of merit that if there are vacancies there, if vacancies are there, based on your rank, you will get this one. After that, it won't be the second one, it would be the second zone, first preference. So this way, there would be a whole circle going about the preferences, first preference of all the zones. And when 5 are done, then the second preference of the first zone, and this way the cycle will complete. Generally for general category students, it's only 2. First 2 cycles would be there. Afterward, most of the time the seats are finished by that. The number of people who are allocated that service is over. So you have to, in other categories, there can be a 3rd, 4th or 5th kind of circle that can come while allocation of the cadre. Now, so let's see what we can go about it. Some rules also, then we will be saying, I will be telling how you can go with it. So zonal system is there. Now another aspect is this dollar sign. What happens is that some people say from OBC, EWS or say SC, ST categories, they are able to qualify all the stages of the exam with in the form of a general category candidate. Now in that case, in the result, this kind of sign would be there in the final UPSC sheet. Now for that, cadre allotment is a little different here. First would be that in the home cadre, whichever suits them, they will get there. For example, if a person from OBC is there and there is a vacancy in OBC in that particular state, so for example Rajasthan, and a person is the OBC there, then in Rajasthan, because Rajasthan is the home cadre, they would be treated as their respective categories OBC. But if they are not getting home cadre, then they would be taking a general seat. So this you have to take care that they would have be taking general. This will happen only if they have cleared all pre, mains and personality test with the general qualifying marks. So this is the rule with regard to the category related dollar system, that in the home cadre, whatever category suits you, that seat you will get, but in non-home cadre, you would be getting the general seat. You won't be treated as the person with that particular category as an outsider. One more technicality is PH people with physical handicap. So for them, there are only two cadres they have to choose. So while in this kind of system, for example, so for example, a person from say Punjab is there. So their home state is Punjab. So they will be going with the first preference would be Punjab. Second, they have this privilege in the sense that they have been given a provision that they would be allocated, they will be given only two options, rest options would not be there. So first they will go with the home cadre, and say second they can opt for say Haryana. For example, only these two options would be there. In all the rest of these options, there would be 99 written in their DAF when they fill. So only these two things would be considered. First, and only two preferences for PH candidates. Now, in the home cadre, they would have to compete with the general, the rank of a general candidate or the category they are belonging to. So this you have to take care that first in home cadre they have to compete. For example, a person is getting say 100 rank and there is a vacancy and there is a person, insider person, person with home cadre, he is having general candidate above that rank. So then the seat would be allocated to the general category candidate. If a PH candidate is having a better rank, then PH will get in that case. So they would have to compete on equal terms in case of insider vacancy, the home cadre. But in non-home cadre, for example, second, the government would have to ensure that they get the second choice, either by going through this system of categories. If there are vacancies, if there are no vacancies, then a separate new seat would be created for PH case. In this year, 2 seats of PH were created for Haryana because Vishwajit and Lakshit, these two people got Haryana as their cadre. Vishwajit was from Rajasthan, so home cadre he has to compete with Gaurav Budania, rank 13. So Gaurav Budania got his home cadre, but one more seat was created because in Haryana there was no vacancy. Second is that Lakshit, Punjab, he had to compete with Simran Jeet, and Simranjit got the Punjab cadre, but he got Haryana cadre. 2 separate vacancies are there. And because of these 2 vacancies in Haryana, some people are saying that next year the vacancies in Haryana will be less in case of IAS services. Now this PH applies only to IAS, not to IPS, because in IPS they are not eligible for the service. So this is the with regard to general rules. Now what are the tricks we can use in order to fill? So these are the general provisions. So now let's discuss how this cadre allocation is done. Initially what will happen, your result will come, your list would be there. Now generally what happens, each and every state gives a number of needed vacancies to the central government, say Ministry of Department of DOPT in case of IAS and Ministry of Home Affairs in case of IPS. Now in these central ministries are having a roster system, which is an objective system where they would be taken into consideration 2 aspects, that all the categories percentages are maintained and there is a 1/3, 2/3 rule of insider outsider across 10 years line. So this kind of roster system is maintained. Based on that, say for example, a state like Haryana is asking for vacancies, say 4 vacancies are there, and then based on that roster they would be giving categorization that out of these 4 vacancies, one would be say insider general, one would be outsider general, one would be OBC general, OBC of insider outsider. On this basis they will be categorizing these vacancies. This kind of vacancy list will come after the result, that this state is having this, because the vacancies by the respective state governments have been sent in the starting part, and this process, whole roster system takes time, and when your result is declared, after some time the vacancies of IAS and IPS would be displayed in their respective ministry side. After that, the service allocation in this in the result would be starting. So there are multiple iterations of service allocation. For example, in 2020 there were 180 seats of IAS, 200 seats of IPS. So in the first iteration, say generally what happens, there are issues with regard to medical examination gets delayed because of BMI reasons. Second, OBC certificate verification, sometimes there are issues, there is a delay there also. All these things can delay the process of that particular service allocation. So say in first iteration, all 180 seats won't be allocated to IAS, rather say for example 170 seats are allocated. In second iteration, 175. In third, the moment all the vacancies are filled by from that list through the process that is happening, the service allocation will keep on going. So generally what happens first, because IAS is given first preference, so first in this year, the third iteration, all the 180 seats were allocated, and after allocation of these seats, now the same process for IPS will also start, and that's why the cadre allocation of IAS comes first and IPS first, next after the cadre allocation of IAS services. Now when the whole service allocation is there, depending on the vacancies, the cadre allocation would start. First, there would be initially a insider distribution of the vacancies. When the insiders are not there, seats can get converted. Now there is a even in UPSC also, there, if you see this, you have to read this cadre allocation policy 2017. There elaborately they have told how this would be done. So first, how would it be done? That if initially insiders would be allocated their respective cadres. What happens is that sometimes because insiders, for example, insider vacancies are there. For example, 2 general category vacancies are there. But generally, general people are able to. We can have a different example. We can have, say, true SC category vacancies are there, and say next is ST category, then OBC and the general. And let's take a simplistic situation: 2 insiders, 1 SC outsider is there, 1 OBC outsider is there, 1 general outsider is there. So how this will operate is that if these 2 are filled by SC insider of that particular state, then matter resolved, there will be no conversion. Sometimes what happens, for example, both these seats are not filled. So what will happen, after SC, preference will be given to ST, and they will see whether there is an outsider vacancy in ST. For example, if there is 1 outsider vacancy in ST, so 1 seat will remain SC and 1 seat will become ST insider, and ST will become SC outsider. So there would be 1 SC outsider, 1 ST insider, and 1 SC, because after 2, 1 has been converted there. Now 1 more is there, but there is no outsider, then preference would be given to OBC candidates. So if there is a 1 outsider vacancy, this 1 SC vacancy, this would again be converted into OBC, and the OBC would become outsider, insider, and SC will become outsider. This way, if there is no outsider in OBC, then it would be shifted to general. So this is the process. Based on outsider insider, that conversion will happen. The better word would be exchange, that the number of percentage of categories would be maintained, that this percentage is OBC and this thing, only the reshuffling in insider outsider as per the rules will happen. So this is there. Mostly what happens in, for example, in Haryana, the number of people with SC and ST category, especially ST category, are very less. Because the population composition is such. So generally what happens is that insider of an ST gets converted to the general, and general become the ST becomes outsider, and you would be seeing lot number of ST outsider officers in Haryana, case of Haryana. So now let's go with insider or outsider. Now after iterations, this would be there. Now we have already talked about this. After marriage, you can go for cadre allocation, but you cannot go back to your home cadre. while allocation. Now what is this Delhi as a, now these are the tricks that people use. One is this Delhi trick, one is the Sikkim trick, and there are some challenging cadres. So first challenging cadre is that most of the people you would have that West Bengal is a challenging cadre. Now the issue with the West Bengal is that deputation, this central deputation is not there. If you go there, because there are very less number of IAS, IPS officers, they won't be sending you back to the union government. So that way your future prospects and deputations are hampered and your career progression is limited. Now there, some other people are saying that this may be the case, but in future it may change, because initially what used to happen was that number of vacancies that West Bengal used to ask for was very less, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, something like that. Now they are asking for more number of vacancies. So this way in future what will happen is that there would be sufficient number of officers in West Bengal, say in 5 years, 10 years down the line, and that the state government will allow those to go for deputation in the central government, union government. And this is there, but the issue is that the issue with West Bengal still most of the people feel is with regard to deputation. Second challenging category is Tamil Nadu. What happens in Tamil Nadu, because state services are very powerful, IS people hardly get DM post. So there is a post called DM, district magistrate. So most of the promotees of the state services, they will be allocated that post, and it would be very difficult for an IS officer to get a DM post in Tamil Nadu. Second is Kerala, third is Kerala. In Kerala, the advantages are that you will get central deputation easily, but the point is that you would not have that kind of authority that is usually associated with an IAS or IPS of a UP cadre. So that way people put this thing down. Now first is, let's discuss about this Delhi trick. We can use this example now. What people do, especially in North India, for example, generally they will put zone 1 as the first preference. So they will say that they have done the studies in Delhi. For example, a person from say Haryana can do that he can say that he has studied from Delhi, so their home cadre becomes Agmut. Now they know one thing, that number of insider vacancies would be 1/3 and outside would be 2/3. So they want to take advantage of that. So what they would do is that rather than putting Agmut as their first preference, they will put Haryana as first preference. Even though they won't get Agmut cadre, but they would be eligible for outsiders of the Haryana state category. So they have more number of vacancies to fight for, and that way if they get even lesser number of rank, they will be able to get this. So this kind of trick can be used also if people want to do this, or what can this is a point that is there, but there are issues associated with this is that if they get a rank in 70s or 70s ke baad, when the second round is going on, generally what happens in Agmut case, the number of vacancies are very, there is a significant number of vacancies, and Rajasthan gets filled in first line only because so many people from Rajasthan qualify. Number of seats in Rajasthan are also there. So if a person puts, if Agmut is not there, they would have to put Rajasthan here. So Rajasthan will also go waste, because by that time most of the cadre allocation to Rajasthan is there. So they will get zone 2 or 3, that kind of situation they would be getting. So this trick you can use, that Delhi you can put, or if you want to play very comfortable, you can put Delhi here, Agmut here, so many vacancies there, you will get Agmut home cadre. And if you want home cadre of Haryana or say Rajasthan, you can go for this kind of strategy where you put Delhi. Plus one more advantage with there, for example, a person has put Delhi and he does not get Haryana, he gets, suppose karo, Odisha. Say not Odisha, say Maharashtra he gets. Now there is a provision that after some time people can get a person, they can fall in love with the person, and a person is having a Haryana cadre and they go for marriage. So they can come back to Haryana because Haryana is outsider for them. If they have put Haryana as insider, then they will never be able to go back through this marriage route. So most of the people do this thing, that because of this how the marriage operates in India, that they will put Delhi and first preference Haryana or whatever the state they are coming from, and that way in future say 3-4 years they would be able to come back to Haryana, their home state. So that is a strategy used. So this is the Delhi trick they can use. Second trick they use is that Sikkim trick. What happens is that so what people will do that in the first line, say for example, first this they will put, first they will put here, first this. Here rather than putting Assam, Meghalaya or West Bengal, they will go for putting first Sikkim. So what generally Sikkim is a very small state, hardly any vacancy will come. So this way they are able to skip this zone 4 because there would be 0 vacancy here, so they would be going next to zone 5. So this way is there, but sometimes say 10 years, 15 years, a new vacancy come. For example, this year ST vacancy was there in case of Sikkim, and Girdhari Lal Meena, so he is an IAS officer, so he got Sikkim because there was one there. In this case, the risk is that if one vacancy is there, he will definitely get there because nobody would have put it. So this you can consider that whether you want to use this in order to avoid other like West Bengal, Assam, Meghalaya, Nagaland, Manipur, because the northeast cadres are little challenging. The terrain is very tough also, plus you have to adapt to the culture of that area. And in case of Nagaland, it's having issues of militancy also. Some other northeastern states also having militancy also. So this you can consider. Now second thing you have to keep into mind is with regard to this zone 2 and 3. So how to decide between zone 2 and 3. So if we go within this zone, how the states are generally allocated. In zone 2, first preference is given to, this is for generally home cadre, you will go for that zone as your home cadre, first preference, first state, but this is with regard to outsiders, people from outsider, how they will rank these states. So in zone 2, first is Uttar Pradesh, second would be Bihar. People go third or fourth Odisha or Jharkhand also, depending on where their location is there, Jharkhand or Odisha. This way they will allocate it. But in zone 3, the first allocation would be Maharashtra, outsiders, second would be Gujarat, third Madhya Pradesh, and then fourth is Chhattisgarh. Now here what will happen is that whether to put zone 2 above or zone 3 above. So generally what, for example, in case of people from Rajasthan, first preference would be this, and this again would be Rajasthan related preference. Then second, whether to, in these two there is a confusion, whether to put second zone first or the third zone first. People who are more confident with their mains marks, they would be putting this above, because now when we compare Uttar Pradesh and Maharashtra, there are Uttar Pradesh is generally considered the best cadre for all India services, because the size of district is so much, there is so much autonomy, because big state, there would be less political interference. You will get lot number of political interference in that, the sense that CM won't be having time to check you on 24/7 basis. So you have lot number of this thing, you can bring about lot number of changes. There is, it is a challenging cadre, you can work and can show your skills there. So Uttar Pradesh is considered a better cadre in that sense from Maharashtra. Except for there are, I will tell the difference between IAS and IPS cadre later on. So they would, if those people who feel that they will get very good marks, they would go for Uttar Pradesh first, this zone first and this zone, because they feel in the first line, they would, first round only they will be getting this cadre. So this is there, but those people who feel that their mains marks have been less, they would be doing this reverse, because they know one thing, that in the first line they won't be getting, this would be skipped. In the second would be the competition between Bihar and Gujarat. So people feel that Gujarat is a better cadre, because of that if they would be putting this second, this way Gujarat would come first and they will get the Gujarat cadre. So based on your marks, you can have this variation on the basis of your confidence. So that is there. Now this is mostly done. I will just go with IPS. What is the difference between IPS and this thing? But after this, I will go fast how you can go for within this cadre allocation. So first, in first case, the first order of preference generally is the where your home state is located. For example, if somebody is having Haryana cadre, so first preference would be this zone 1. Second generally is this there, this Uttar Pradesh. Then third would be Maharashtra. So this again, you depending on your marks, you can shift second, third, and generally after that people go for zone 5 and then go for zone 4. So this is the general criteria. Within this, for example, this home state you are having, for example, a person having Rajasthan as a home state and putting Rajasthan as this thing first would be there, or Haryana. If we compare Haryana and Rajasthan, both are good cadre. Rajasthan advantages are there, big area is there, district size is more number of autonomy would be there. So that kind of things there with Rajasthan. After that, people, after the home cadre, people go for Agmot. Why Agmot is that because there are so many vacancies and they can get that cadre easily in the second round. For initially also they won't be skipping anything. If a person put Haryana, he would be skipping it definitely because this would have been used in the first part only. So after that, a person can go for 3 smartly if he wants to do. So if it can go for this thing Punjab and then Uttarakhand. And why I am saying this thing Haryana little later, for those people who are who feel their home cadre is Rajasthan, because in second line Haryana won't be this, you would be wasting it. So this this would be third and this would be fourth, and this way you will go fifth. Now Jammu and Kashmir is a part of Agmut category. This is there. So with this zone 1 is there. This is the preference. For zone 2, preferences are first is Uttar Pradesh, second is Bihar generally. Then you go for Odisha or Jharkhand, you can manage accordingly. Some people go with the Jharkhand above the Odisha and this kind of there. In Maharashtra, first this zone 3 first zone, then second one is this, third one is this consensus. The confusion here is again Jharkhand, Odisha, depending on your own relation with the states, mostly similar cadres, and that is there. Now here, now there are two ways. One is that you go with the Sikkim trick, or you can go with Assam Meghalaya first or West Bengal first. Generally people go for Assam Meghalaya. Now Assam Meghalaya also there is a rule also. Generally if a person gets a Assam Meghalaya cadre, what will happen is that the Assam and Meghalaya are close by state. Assam is a very good cadre. So females of those who are females, they will be getting Assam cadre, and priority would be given to them, while a location of Assam and Meghalaya male would be preferred. So that is there. So you take this into consideration. After that, West Bengal. Now then one go for Tripura. Then after that Manipur. Then Sikkim and Nagaland. Now here Nagaland people put in the last because of the challenges of militancy there. In the zone 4th, first people go for Karnataka. It's very good cadre. Karnataka, then Telangana, new state, so more autonomy, and Andhra Pradesh. Then people go for Kerala, and then last would be the Tamil Nadu. So this is the sequence. You can note it down also. I'm giving this space. General sequence is there for Rajasthan cadre. If another cadre is your home cadre, you can put that one as above. Now finally, let's go with what's the difference between IS and IPS with regard to the relevance of these cadres. So one is something called commissionariat system. There are states where there is a lot number of commissionariat system. There are many cities are there. Because of that, the power of IPS increases there, because rather than reporting to the DM of that area, the DCP, SP is called DCP there. So he has to report to the seniors. The more autonomy is there, some more powers are there. So the states with commissionariat system are given a priority. Second is these two cadres, Maharashtra and Agmut cadre. They are very powerful IPS cadres. Maharashtra, you have so many cities, Mumbai, Pune, Nagpur, so many cities. with commissionary system. Agumut, you will get an opportunity to work in Delhi. So Delhi is a very powerful, so most of you would be knowing the name of the commissioner of Delhi, but not a chief secretary of Delhi, because the power of IPS in Delhi is way more. So you have to put these two states on priority. In zone 1, you put Agumut little above. Maharashtra, you give more preference to Maharashtra. So that's the difference between these two things. Now EWS, what is there? EWS would be contesting in the cadre allocation with the journal. First journal allocation would be there, then EWS allocation would be there. There are no separate vacancies as of now for EWS categories. So because of that, generally happens that third or fourth round they would be getting their cadres. So that is the thing that you can take into consideration. Now finally we come to the third part of the lecture, the hobbies part. Now this is the part of the DAF filling where you would be getting an opportunity to improve your personality test. So when I got 129 marks and 184 marks, there was a huge difference in my how I filled a DAF-2 in that case, because this would be the most important area from where the board would be asking questions. You have to be careful while filling these things, and you have to take an objective decision. I would be telling how we can fill this page in order to make your DAF very attractive, and that may enable you to fetch good marks in the personality test. Now whatever we discussed previously will happen after the result. So, but this is the thing that would be happening before the result. This is the thing that will be making you get good marks, good rank, even enable you in getting into the final list also. I already talked about the relevance of personality text. 275 marks, you can get up to 200 marks. So 200 marks is equivalent to 2 journal studies papers. So one mistake is that some people would be say there is no preparation for personality test. This is a myth. You have to prepare for this personality test, and you can, if you do it in the right direction, you can improve your marks easily. And you can make a big difference. 80 myself 129 to 184, so 30, 80, 50, close to 55 marks difference is there. So 55 marks sudden improvement can bring wonders to you. And those people who are general category candidates who are getting selection, this means they are having decent marks in mains. So they should dedicatedly focus on improving their marks in personality test, because personality test for general category candidates is very important. It can make a great difference. You see that generally what happens is the general category would be end by 300 rank. In the 300 line category would be finished, because the cutoff is there. Below that you won't be getting rank. So the difference between you yourselves see the marks between 30 marks, 30 rank 30, because before that the marks are little higher. 30 rank and 300 rank is very less, maybe 20 marks only. So this difference you can easily create through this area. People who just qualified the list can get a good service if they have 200 plus marks, because that would change the things completely. So don't take personality test lightly. You have to have a strategy for personality test, and first step of this strategy is filling DAF-2 properly in a very objective manner. So now let's start how we can fill it in a very objective manner. Now there are two types of DAF filling. One is defensive, one which avoids questions. And this is a mistake. Never go for defensive. One would be provoking. A DAF which would be provoking questions from the board members. So there should be hints. First, some people would be doing is that some people say let's leave everything. So that's a mistake. I'm saying for normal people. Some people, exceptions are there, 1 or 2, but exception cannot be rule. What they do is they are having great personality, great speaking language skills, and they would be able to manage that board in a very good way and will be getting good marks only. So that way, but for journal as a rule, you should fill this section properly. So first part is you have to fill it, and you have to fill in order to encourage the board members to ask questions from here. There should be certain key areas which should attract attention of the people who are seeing this hobbies page. Second aspect is that how can you make this little more effective is that you have very specific hobbies. So I will show mine. I think. Okay. So I have not put here, but you, for example, reading is a, now there are two types of hobbies. One would be reading. You can write it as reading books, or you can go little more specific, reading books of this genre, or say reading fiction books, or reading books of this author. So this way you can be very specific, and that can provoke a question, very specific question from the chairperson or members of the board. So this has to be very, now for example, if you are getting a prize, you can say gold medal is in college function, but rather than this, you can write the topic that gold medal in say national vector, I wrote gold medal in national vector borne disease control program quiz. Rather than a quiz of the college level, you can specifically write there. Now the question will be from the area that is given, for example vector borne diseases in my case, so questions would be asked from that area. So you have to be very specific, and you should put hints to the examiner so that he asks questions from there. Now why I am saying that you should do is that, one is that if you do not, you are putting very generic things, then how the examiner would be getting an opportunity to ask question, because generic questions, the sky is the limit, they can ask from anywhere, so you would be less prepared in all the areas. But if you are prepared in that particular specific area, in-depth knowledge is there, there is a high chance whatever question that person would be asking, you would be able to respond to it. So that way you have to have very specific part, hobbies related part, that should be there. Second element is that there should be coherence. Coherence in the sense that whatever hobbies you are having and whatever personality you are showing to that examiner on the first impression, they should be matching. What I mean by that is that, for example, a person who is very obese and he cannot fill this hobby space with sports of all kind, that would be very incoherent. People will feel that it is dishonest. That a person who is not physically fit and he has engaged in say basketball also, cricket also, and all these things, this kind of blunder you don't do there should be coherent. Plus, for example, if a person he has got very less marks in school and college time, say 70%, 80% marks, but he is writing that quizzing is their hobby, or say these competitions is there, this would be less coherent. So you try to maintain coherence, that it looks honest. And third part would be that you have to write here, and what happens is that people have say some kind of hobby, but because of the preparation, honestly they are not able to follow it up. So they do not have 100% knowledge of that particular hobby. This should not discourage you in writing that hobby there. You can, first of all, you can prepare it now. There is plenty of time also now. Plus second is that you cannot never know 100% of any hobby. Even when you devote whole of your lifetime there, and there would be areas that won't be missing, but the general things about that hobby should be known there. If you know 20% of that hobby, write that hobby into this hobbies page. That way it would be very good for you. So this is with regard to the thing. I would show you my DAF also. Especially the hobbies page. So I used to get very good marks in this thing. 96.2%, 93%. So this way, in order to show coherence, I can write the quiz part of the in the for example, the gold medal in Indian National Biology Olympiad. So this I got, so I can write silver medal in National Vector Borne Disease Control Program quiz. Now you cannot write, you should not write at this level, in college level or school level. You should specifically mention this thing, that National Vector Borne. I am a doctor, so this area is more comfortable with me. Coherence is also visible. Specificity is also visible. Directly they will ask a question, what is a vector borne diseases? What are the various kind of vector borne disease? And I did get a question in from that. My board was TC Anand sir board, and he asked what are the various vector borne diseases. So very easy. You have already read about it, so you would be very comfortably answering it. Now second is security head of inter-college fest. Now you can write the name of inter-college fest, Euphoria. Now this way some questions you can expect from Euphoria. What is the meaning of Euphoria? This way more directed. You are directing the board members to ask a question here again. Here this is a unique one part was coherence. I told specificity is done. So you have to prepare these things. One is unique hobby. If you are having a unique hobby, say even 20% of that unique hobby you are having, knowledge of that, you prepare that and you put it there, because they are also people who are getting so many candidates to examine on a daily basis. If a new thing is there, they would be more curious to know there, and they will definitely ask a question from this. And while practicing mock, you try to answer this way, and you keep on practicing each mock also, because generally what happens, if you give so many mocks, people feel this is getting repetitive, but you will get only 30 minutes there. So if you are repeating it this time, that time it won't be a repetition, only one question would be coming from there, and you have to extract maximum out of the that one question. So you try to write a unique hobby, but I had written folk song of Haryana, so that becomes vague. But if you write the name of the folk song, directly they will ask from that hobby. So you have to be very unique, specific, coherent. These elements in DAF filling should be there. And finally, I would say that fill your DAF as early as possible, say within a week, so that you can start preparing for it. And then there are strategies how we can go for preparation that we can tackle. Now the DAF filling is done. When this is done, you close your eyes. That now most of the things I have told you with regard to the service allocation, cadre allocation, and DAF filling, you discuss with your friends, parents, your teachers with regard to DAF, and fill it as fast as possible, so that you get a time to read it, to make notes for it. Now finally I would like to tell is that while making, previously we used to make notes with regard to DAF on a paper pen, like pre-mains paper pen format, but try to use technology here. You can use Evernotes, because your answers would keep on reforming with each and every mock. So you can edit it, but if you make a written notes, then you would have very so many corrections there, and it won't be legible also. And my opinion is that you write questions, answers format in, or type it there, and in the end have like 7 days before the personality test, whenever the schedule is there, print out there, you read it and then go it. When it's written there, then it is more it's a better way, and you would be having more coherence, your confidence level would be more there, and you would be answering in a better way. So with this, I think session comes to an end. Now I can take questions, specific questions on YouTube. So people can ask questions there. So first is Shashi Kumar Dinanath Thakur sir, can we change the IS cadre selected by us in further studies? We cannot change these cadres. This one once done is done, and cadre cannot be changed. That's why you have to be very particular while filling these cadres. और जो मैंने बताया, you can use these tricks, Delhi trick, Sikkim trick, and based on your own confidence level, your personality, you can go for this. Prashant Pandey is saying, how much in-depth knowledge is required for hobby? Say if my hobby is calligraphy, what all should I know about this art? Now, this depth, not much. If you are having calligraphy as your hobby, first of all, do one thing, write calligraphy Wikipedia, read whole of the page, and identify keywords, what is there. Now, if possible, you do little bit of activity. Even 20% of knowledge of calligraphy would be helpful for you, and you can go with that particular hobby. You can improve that hobby, you can manage that hobby, and you should be clear that some basic things a person with a general interest outside, from an outside field, he should be, when he is asking, you should be able to reply. For example, in case of calligraphy, famous names like calligrapher, for example, they can ask whom calligraphed our Indian Constitution, preamble, who did the calligraphy, some international names. This basic knowledge should be there, and if they ask you to use their paper and do some kind of calligraphy, you should be able to do, at least you practice about it. This happens for the songs. They can ask you to sing for a folk song or this kind. You should be very confident, one or two, or you should be able to do that, and you should be able to perform in front of them. It should not appear dishonest. So general things should be known. Prashant Pandey, what if we have actively participate in active politics? Should we mention it? No, I don't think this is an hobby. Political participation is not an hobby. Hobby is that like engaging in political debates can be your hobby, but participation in politics is not an hobby. In fact, this will go against you only, because one of the foundational civil services value is neutrality. So you have to be above politics. So you can go participating in political debates. Then the whole of the gamut of the questions from the current, and they would ask controversial question for sure. People say controversial question do not come, but they come in personality test maximum. These days mains also, they will ask this kind of questions. In order to know your opinion, you should have clear cut understanding of what your stand is. You should be able to defend it, and so you can write that engaging in political debates. So that can be your hobby. So but they can give you a real life situation also. They can say that let's engage in a political debate. You go for the point that this issue is there. So you have to be very clear that in 1 or 2 minutes you should be able to start the debate also. Next is Shashi Kumar Dinanath Thakur. Sir, is in there any example of someone who is good in academics but don't have anything to fill in extracurricular sports and column in DAF and still cleared? There is an example. I think a friend of mine was telling that there is a person who, but he was having very good personality in the sense that his speaking skills were very good, and so he left whole of this hobbies page empty. So then the questions were asked around the GK thing, that or general studies part. So he was able to get good marks because he was able to answer those questions very properly. It may happen that if you have written very generic things in hobbies page, they would not ask even single question from here also. This can be a reality. That's why you have to be specific and provoke the interest of the examiner to ask from this area, because in like sky is the limit for the syllabus. So they can ask any random question. If luck favors you in your comfortable area, you can ask you can get a question. So in that case, you have to be very thorough with the newspaper, like 3-4 newspaper. You should be comfortable there, and you should be confident there. You should have language skills in order to handle that particular situation. So that is there. Any other question people can ask? One person is there, but don't make exception as a rule. Exceptions are like 1 or 2 people. So most of the people are in the average category. Sir, if my UPSC DAF-1 has opted for IPS in 5th or lower position, how do I justify this in interview? Will it create an bad impression? So in so you will get a now first part is that in rather than you can go for first, second, third, 4th position you put. Don't put below 4th, because it's a waste. Even though you won't be getting in anyway, you put in the 4th position after IS, then IFS or whatever you are having. 3rd you are having say IRS or say 4th or 5th position. Even after that IPS you put, then you will not be getting, because you will be having other vacancies there. So now the question would be asked there, that why you are not putting this IPS. But remember one thing, those people are non-judgmental. They will respect your honesty, that you can say that yes, this is not my kind of job that I want to do. I have these kind of skills and I would be better able to use these skills in this service rather than IPS. So this kind of thing you can mention in this case. But you remember one thing, sometimes when you are preparing, you are very theoretical and you feel all the services are equal. But in reality, the kind of respect that society associated with various services is very different. So IPS is a good service. You should consider that. Some people feel that physically they won't be able to cope with this. So in that case, there is a proper training. People have been able to improve their physical fitness while training, and so they do not push too much. It's a 10 months training, and people have lost weight also, their physical fitness has improved. So this way you should have a second thought about it. If you have some medical issues, then you can straightforward mention that, because I won't be qualifying for that, so I thought why to waste this opportunity of giving preferences, and I put it little down. So that way you can do that. Anything else? Sir, do IAS officer regret not choosing IFS, IPS and IRS as their first preference? Now this IAS officers, see, only regret that happens is that when they do not get good cadres. So what happens is that IAS officer they do not cadre of their choice, they sometimes regret, because they are not able to integrate culturally with that cadre. So but the IAS is a very good service from starting till the end. So that's why I'm saying that people are having so much aspirations associated with IAS. Name of some institution is based on IAS only rather than civil services. This again shows the significance of IAS service, because initially also so much autonomy, field work is there, then so much exposure, after retirement also so much respect and so much things to work on. Okay. So it's a good service, very good service. So with this, I think no more questions are there. We can close the session. So with this, chalo, let's my best wishes for them, for you. Prepare for this exam. Personality test is an integral component. This is a final takeaway. Prepare for this diligently, objectively, and you can get very good marks in personality test. Thank you so much.